Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, show number 87 for the 18th of June 2010. Richard Saunders with you all the way from Sydney, Australia, which, depending on where you are, of course, is on the other side of the world. Or it's the next country along, or it's sort of just across the street, or I think you get the idea. Today's episode is chock-a-block, so I better get through this intro really quickly. Kylie Sturgis chats with Dr Janis Bennionfrom from the UK all about her blog and activities with ladies who do skepticism, meeting up, chatting about skepticism with ladies in the UK, and I think they're going to be at TAM 8 too. Very interesting interview. That's followed by a special report by our good friend Sean the Blogonaut. He and a group of friends went to a Mind, Body, Spirit / Wallet Expo in Adelaide here in Australia and have a chat about what they discover. And that's followed by the Think Tank, where we're back at our favourite club down the street. Will there be a bus announcement? That is the question. Well, keep listening and find out. So, put that TV down, stop watching the World Cup, and enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
I'm Kylie Sturgis, and I'm talking to Janis Bennion. Janis Bennion is the co-organiser of Skeptics in the Pub for Greater Manchester Skeptics. She's the co-host of the Just Skeptics podcast and one of the ladies behind Ladies Who Do Skepticism. So far, this group has featured on the Righteous Indignation podcast, episode 50, BBC Radio Manchester, and the Guardian newspaper. She joins us on the Skeptic Zone to talk about how it is not only active in England, but starting to make significant moves overseas. Janis, you are a member of the Greater Manchester Skeptics, and you are even responsible for the meetup.com site, you've told me.
Yeah, that's right. I organise Skeptics in the Pub together with a few guys over here. We have a meetup website and also Facebook and all the normal stuff.
Wonderful. It's a great way of getting to know people via these online ways, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's we've seemed to have reached quite a number of people who aren't on the Facebook, you know, and who actually are kind of have very strong opinions about not being on Facebook, because every time we write a little post that says something like, you know, maybe we should just switch to Facebook. Everyone, well, no, about 50% of people write, no, don't move to Facebook. I don't use Facebook. I hate Facebook. So, yeah.
Now, what led you to first describe yourself as a skeptic, if you do describe yourself as a skeptic, that is?
Yeah, I do. I do think that the actual description came much after the fact, though. I'd say that basically I've always been interested in, well, I've always asked questions, that's the thing. And I think probably the very first thing I can think of, it wasn't that early. I'm not going to pretend that it was when I was 5 years old or something, you know, and I was asking ridiculous questions to my parents. No, it was actually that my brother bought me a book because I'm really bad at maths, and when you're a geneticist or whatever and you're bad at maths, that can be a little bit of a problem. So when I was at university, he bought me a book which is Why Do Buses Come in Threes? The Hidden Mathematics of Everyday Life, which
yes.
I read that book, and I'm not sure it actually helped my maths as such, but it certainly helped my understanding of maths, and it really helped me to realise that there's a lot of maths out there which is presented to you every day, which is kind of not real maths at all, statistics which are not real statistics, coincidences which are presented as more than, you know, just pure chance, that kind of thing. And I suppose that led me on to reading Ben Goldacre's articles in column, I should say, in The Guardian, The Bad Science. And I think, you know, after that, it was pretty obvious to me that I was interested in that side of things, but I only really understood that the word skepticism existed in terms of this kind of thing when I was offered, somebody at work said to me I should listen to the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe on the iPod. because I was listening to Astronomy Cast already as a recommendation from this guy, and I really enjoyed that. And he said I should listen to SGU. So I started listening to it, and I was like, oh, right, okay, that's what I am. I'm one of those. Yeah, I know labels aren't a good thing, but I think on the other hand, they can be, because it's just a short way of explaining what you are to somebody in a limited amount of time. And when you're out there talking to people, I suppose that makes things easier sometimes.
You are not only involved in the Greater Manchester Skeptics, you are a member of a fantastic group called Ladies Who Do Skepticism. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, actually, this came about. It was kind of a joint venture between the Greater Manchester Skeptics and also the Merseyside Skeptics. We have links with them because obviously we're very close geographically.
Oh, how close are they? Is it a few cities?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm really bad at actual distance because I don't drive. I've got a bicycle, and I would never cycle there. But it takes less than an hour on the train.
Okay.
So from city to city. So I basically go to pretty much all of their Skeptics and pub meets and things like that. And, I listened to Skeptics with a K. So I got to know the guys after that, after going along to the meets. And after talking with them and, also having the Greater Manchester Skeptics board meetings, we've talked quite a lot about the need for more balance in the Skeptics and the pub events. So that was the kind of the push, but I wouldn't say it's the only reason, but that was the push that kind of made us actually do something about it. So at the moment, I'm doing meetups both in Liverpool on behalf of Merseyside Skeptics and in Manchester on behalf of Greater Manchester Skeptics. And then there's a few other groups who are doing them separately. Also, Hayley Stevens, who is part of the Bath Skeptics and the Righteous Indignation podcast, she's hopefully going to be having a meetup there soon. And also Edinburgh and Newcastle have both spoken to me about doing them there, of course, and further afield. So it just started off as me saying, there's not very many women here, which after going online, it seems it's a common complaint. You see people talking about it all over the place on the internet about women who are involved in skepticism.
What makes the gatherings and focus different from, say, Skeptics in the Pub? You have all these groups already happening. Why this particular focus?
Well, okay, so the first thing I'd say is that I go to Greater Manchester Skeptics in the Pub, I go to Liverpool Skeptics in the Pub, and I enjoy them. I think they're great. But I also can't really get enough of this kind of thing. That would be the first. I don't think it's been saturated yet. So, once a week isn't enough. Between the Greater Manchester socials and talks and the Merseyside ones, that makes it about once a week, and obviously that's not enough. So, no. But I mean, really, the real reason is that I don't think that a pub is the only place where people are going to want to meet. So, these people shouldn't be ruled out just because they don't want to meet in a pub. And I know that you have other events in other, I think in the States, I think they've got events which are more kind of family oriented as well.
Oh yeah, I've done Skeptics in the Park, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So we were interested, both of our groups were interested in doing something like that as well. So first of all, yeah, I think that you're kind of missing a group of people if you're just in the pub, because not only, some of the men who come along have said, oh, well, first of all, please don't make it too late because, I've got a family to get home to kind of thing, or, I want to be able to come in and have a drink with you all and have a chat and then go home, put my kids to bed, or, I don't want to be home too late because we have to get up for work or whatever. And then I thought, well, what are their wives doing?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And why are the wives staying at home while they're coming out doing that? And you can't change people. You can't change traditions. As much as I think that there should be an alternate, kind of, okay, well, you go out one week and, your wife goes out the next week. People just have their little patterns and they don't want to change them. So what you can do is you can change the environment and you can change the time and place, and you can just try and get in touch with a different group of people. And I feel like it's definitely happened already, not only for that reason, also for other reasons. There's a regular Ladies Who Do Skepticism now, Emma, who comes along to our meetups, and she also now comes along to pretty much every Manchester meetup and the Skeptics in the Pub. And she hadn't wanted to come to the Skeptics in the Pub. She'd felt a little bit intimidated. I don't know if that's the right word, really. And when you meet her, she's an incredibly confident woman. So it's not saying that, these women aren't confident. She's a very confident woman. She's very well spoken. She has no problem speaking her mind. But somehow she just felt a little bit put off coming to the Skeptics in the Pub meets. So she came along to Ladies Who Do Skepticism, and now she comes along to all the others too. And I think that probably speaks quite a lot for the event itself. It's engaging a group of people who wouldn't necessarily be engaged otherwise.
It's fostering a whole new demographic, really.
Yeah, and of course there's many other things which I've realised since then.
Yeah.
But, the reason and the original idea behind it and how it started out, that's one thing. And what I'm learning now about the benefits is, that's another thing too.
Where would you be likely to meet? Is it more of a cafe situation, a library?
We started doing it in a cafe, and that went down quite well because people didn't have to turn up exactly on time. But yeah, and then people came in dribs and drabs. Obviously, they saw that there was a group of women sitting together. It was pretty clear after a while that people come in, and as soon as they came in, I took along some magazines and things with me, just as I get a subscription that my parents subscribe me to, and it's a pretty good magazine. I enjoy it on the whole, but their health section is absolutely appalling. Yeah. So I took some of those with me just to kind of spark some conversation in case it was necessary, but it really wasn't necessary. It turns out that the women who came along were kind of just ready to go, ready to complain about these things that they've been seeing all the time. And I originally put it down as for 2 hours, but they kicked us out of the cafe and we were stood talking on the pavement outside before we made our ways home. Right. But yeah, the next one we're doing is kind of a lunch. We don't have any set agenda. We don't have anything particular. So why not, make a little bit of a change once in a while and just see what people like, what people don't like, and just give it a go. There's no pressure at all. It's like I said, otherwise it's just me sitting there eating nice things, and that's fine.
I have heard that you're planning on having a meet-up at TAM8 due to Heidi Anderson of the shethought.com site. What are some of the goals for that, for example?
Heidi Anderson getting in contact with me, and also yourself, Kylie, contacting me, were two huge boosts to me continuing this.
Oh, lovely.
It honestly, it's so great because when I first Googled, around to see about women in skepticism and all the rest of it, of course, actually your blog was one of the first ones that I came across.
Wow.
Gosh. And I started to read it and I was like, this is brilliant because I'm interested not only in women, I'm also interested in what kids are taught. I think it's really important. But, I don't want to come across in any ways cultish. That's always a danger with skepticism.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great. And then, and also She Thought, I was reading She Thought and all the rest of it. And so when the two of you contacted me, I was like, you were like, I think you wrote something like, I have this blog, by the way. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Well, you can't assume everything. I mean, half the time I surprise myself when I look at how many comments there might be for a blog post and I go, oh, people liked that. That's lovely. And more often than not, I think they're usually just coming over to check out the lyrics of a Tim Minchin song. And I go, oh, well, never mind. Yeah.
But I think that, for example, the She Thought blog, it certainly gave me food for thought because it seemed to totally fit in with the kind of ideas that I had, which is that I'm not interested in skepticism for celebrity or for any of those kind of things. What I'm interested in is real women having their say about things which they're interested in and that they're skeptical about, giving their opinions and just making it really normal to do that. And I like She Thought because it's submission based.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. And actually Heidi and I are talking about doing some kind of short 15-minute segment kind of add-on podcast where people can submit interviews, women can submit interviews with either, people who are well-known or people who are less well-known about their ideas, skepticism, pseudoscience, any of that kind of thing. She contacted me and asked me, if they could go ahead and do an event there, if they could use the artwork, which basically a guy, Andrew Taylor from Greater Manchester Skeptics, he did the artwork for us. It's just he's got a website and stuff. It's pretty nice, and I like his cartoons. So I asked him if he'd do a couple of things for us. So they're using that, and I just think it's nice to have a basis for everything where, it's a blog at the moment. It's not ideal. It's not supposed to be a blog. It's supposed to be a website. But that was the fastest way I could set it up, just to put any event that happens anywhere in the world, to advertise it there. If people have anything else they want to, I can put it up as well. It wasn't about me. It was about advertising stuff. And so I think if Ladies Who Do Skepticism is at TAM 8, like that when I got the email about it, I was just like, wow, that's pretty much like made all of this just worth any of the effort, which, it's not a lot of effort to get women together when they want to talk.
What do you think are the greatest challenges that face women then in terms of paranormal and pseudoscientific claims?
I think the main things that come up at the Ladies Who Do Skepticism meetings. Okay, I don't know if wherever your listeners are and yourself, if you get this advert, but we have an advert which basically is saying to you that if you use this product, then 78% or whatever it is of women say that their armpits felt sexier or looked sexier or something. And I feel like they're inventing things for us to worry about, and inventing answers where there was never a question until you ask the question. And then, of course, if I ask you, right, which would you prefer? Would you prefer your armpit to look sexy or not to look sexy? I mean, so sorry. Okay, what's your answer on that one?
Well, doesn't everyone want to consider themselves to be sexy and alluring and attractive and so forth? So yeah,
exactly. So what's wrong with the percentage of women who said no? That's what I want to know. That's my first problem. Like, no, I don't want my armpits to look sexier, unless it was kind of to make a point that maybe they were skeptics. Maybe they didn't want to be interviewed about how sexy their armpits were. I think that was one of the ones that came up that we were just like, what? Because we got the advert and things like there's an advert for a facial moisturizer, which basically suggests that it can with Halle Berry advertising it, and she's saying, I've ditched my previous moisturizer and now I combat 7 ways of aging. And I didn't know that there were 7. I didn't know there was a discrete number to start with. Obviously, until the cream came out, nobody else did either. But I'm wondering next year how many there's going to be and how often we have to change face cream to keep up with them.
Yes.
So, I think things like that come up. Also, something which comes up quite a lot in skepticism, which is religion. And we talked about it, but not in the sense of, I'm atheist, I'm agnostic, what are you? We talked about it more in the sense of, how do you feel talking with other people about religion? And it seems that when I talk to people at Skeptics in the pub, there are many fewer people who have a problem just saying outright, either I'm atheist or agnostic, or discussing with people about religion. In general, at the Ladies Who Do Skepticism meetup, certainly people feel like it should be something which is less of an important matter in skepticism. So that was interesting because I hadn't come across that before.
Yeah.
And just generally, how can you, what it's like every day, how your friends see you if they know that you're a skeptic, not necessarily the term skeptic, but if they're reading the horoscope and they say, oh, this is going to happen. What was star sign of you? And you kind of begrudgingly say Virgo. Like, shut up, really. How do we feel about those kind of situations, and how do we feel about kind of being the one that spoils everyone's fun? You do feel like that, but it's not fun to me. So it's not spoiling any fun because it's not fun. It's just ridiculous. And I suppose that kind of thing we talk about. It's not so much about at least for the very first ones that we've had, because of course I do both of them. We've only had a couple of meets so far, but at least the beginning, what we've mainly talked about is kind of everyday life, being skeptical, being a woman in the workplace with men, what that means, for example, in relationships, just normal things that women talk about, except with kind of a skeptical slant, I suppose.
There has been some debate in regards to whether or not it's feminist to be a skeptic, whether feminists tend towards being anti-science. You yourself, you have a PhD in genetics. Is it that big an issue, in your opinion, in regards to whether or not women and science meet?
This is another difficult one.
Yeah.
I think that actually skepticism can really help feminism in a way. I don't think that you have to be a feminist to be a skeptic, and I don't think you have to be a skeptic to be a feminist. I think that feminism can definitely be helped by skepticism. I mean, for example, what we were talking about these face creams, about, you know, your armpits looking sexier. I mean, how many of these things actually exist in the real world, and how do they contribute to how women are seen in the world when you have these adverts shown at you constantly? And if skepticism can help to get rid of some of this rubbish, you know, then surely that can only help. On the other side, certainly science, looking at science separately, science will hopefully, idealistically, uncover truth. That's how it's supposed to be. I mean, of course, it's not always the case. I think personally, saying that scientists, as everybody, every single one of them, every single scientist saying that they don't have a bias and that they always do things completely accurately and without judgment, I'd say that is incorrect. I think that the good ones do, but you know, and the ones who aren't under pressure do. Pressure to get things done under time, in the right time, all that kind of thing. I think that science can uncover things which might make us feel uncomfortable about not only our sex, but also our race and that kind of thing. But I think whether or not we should go into that is another discussion. You know, the ethics of continuing research into differences between men and women, or differences between the races, all that kind of thing. At the end of the day, it's research, it's basic research, and none of this is supposed to be done with the aim of trying to single out a group of people. Yeah. So that's one side of it. On the other side of it, you know, science has been for a long time now predominantly male in terms of the research. So I don't know how that alters what's researched. And I'd like to add, of course, actually, I've always been a little bit afraid of the word feminism, but I don't think I'm actually afraid of feminism itself. It's just that the connotations it's had growing up, somehow it's always been seen to me as, I'm sorry, but completely wrongly, I've always thought it was something where, you know, women wanted to take over and be better and all the rest of it. And it's only really, you know, having looked into the word and what it means, that it's of course it's not about that at all. So I think it's something I've shied away from, and therefore really not knowledgeable about it at all. I would love to be more knowledgeable about it. But I know that there are plenty of skeptics who are feminists. I know there's a group which is Reclaim the Pub, which is made up of skeptics and non-skeptics, which is a feminist group that meet up in the pub. I think they have a WordPress page if you want to find more out about that.
So what are some future goals? What do you think is the greatest need?
I think to be able to make it easier for women to say, I disagree with this, meaning generally to other women, not necessarily to men. It's not about, you know, dividing sexes, that kind of thing. But, you know, saying about spoiling people's fun, about horoscopes, about vaccinations, talking about face creams, talking about horoscopes, talking about homeopathy, about, you know, we should be able to have our say, not be, you know, a podcast host or a blog writer, but just be a normal, everyday woman who happens to not believe in these things, to be able to say these things comfortably. And even if people don't accept them comfortably, to know that we have the backing of a network of people who feel the same way, either online or socially, locally, that would be a great thing for me. It's okay to disagree with people and to say, no, I'm sorry, but, you know, why are you even looking at this? This is absolutely rubbish. You know, in a polite way. You don't have to be aggressive.
No, just standing up for yourself, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And that it's okay because, you know, you have other people that you maybe don't work with, that you see another time, that, you know, you can go back and go, can you believe, you know, I have to put up with this person at work who brings in a crystal every day and puts it, you know, at the side of the bench, that kind of thing. That would be nice. And generally just you know, that's kind of the ladies thing. But the other thing is to have a really nice community. And I don't mean a community who goes out and gets drunk all the time, a skeptical community who does that. I mean a community where, you know, if I want to know in my local area which schools have teachers who are, trying to teach creationism in the science room, or which books to buy, because some of them you go in the bookshop and they look really harmless and they look great.
I've come across that.
Yeah, and I want to know those things. So the only way you can know those things is by talking to other people who have a similar, let me think about this, a similar way of living to you. For example, if I was a Christian or, any other kind of group, I'd have that support network of people that I could talk to and say, right, I need a book about this, what, if you got any advice, what I need to go to a school, where can I send her, But as a skeptic, it's much looser than that at the moment. And I think ultimately what would be great, and I know that both the Merseyside Skeptics, Greater Manchester Skeptics, and pretty much all the skeptical groups I've spoken to agree that this would be something which would be really nice to have. So that's what we hope.
So where can people go to find out more?
So Ladies Who Do Skepticism, we have currently a temporary website which is set up as a blog, and that is skepticladies.wordpress.com. We also have a group on Facebook. We've got a like button, so you can like us. Or
That's great.
Yeah, and as I say, you don't have to be a lady to like Ladies Who Do Skepticism, because what's not to like. And so we've got a lot of support for that. So that's we've also got a group on there. But basically, I think that if anybody's interested, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. In the country or in the world, it doesn't matter. If you write to us at skepticladies@gmail.com, we will try and find other people who want to meet up with you. If you want to create this network, we will do the footwork for you and try and sort something out, because we've already got people in North America, and we've got people over here in the UK, several different places. So I think it's starting up, and if you'd like something in your area, then people can definitely write in and request it. And and Greater Manchester Skeptics, we have a blogspot.com, and we also have a Facebook page, and we have a podcast which is called Just Skeptics, which is available on iTunes.
Yes, and soon, hopefully, getting in touch with Heidi, Janice, we might see even more of the Ladies Who Do Skepticism online. Absolutely.
It's like I said, it's not about individuals, it's about groups. So the more people who get involved, the better. I'm really excited to talk to Heidi about it. I'm really excited to talk to you about it today. And
it's just so
great.
Exciting, isn't it?
It is. I know it doesn't sound it, because I'm quite low peaking when I talk, but but inside.
Brilliant.
It's just my British Reserve,
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, this is what British Reserve ends up creating. I'm all the more for it. I mean, really. Thank you very much for joining us, Janice.
Thank you very much.
For those attending TAM 8, there is a Facebook group now up called Ladies Who Do Skepticism and Lunch at TAM 8. Look for the host Heidi Anderson online and check out the updates at the Ladies Who Do Skepticism site. In addition to that, there is another don't miss event at TAM 8 this year. The Skepticality Speaking Beyond BS is the amazing live podcast edition of several shows. It will feature Desiree Schell, Robin McCarthy, also known as Swoopy, Heidi Anderson, Barbara Drescher, and many celebrity guests. That will be at 9:30 p.m. Thursday, July the 8th, at the suite level of the South Point Hotel and Casino. There's limited live seating, so check out the Facebook page for that as well, and the shethought.com website. In addition, you can help students get to the amazing meeting by checking out the shethought.com site. There's still time to help several university students attend the meeting in order to learn more about science and skepticism. Check out the article written by Barbara Drescher, and do donate in order to help promote science for the next generation.
Hi, Sean the Blogonaut reporting for the Skeptic Zone from the wilds of South Australia. On hearing that Adelaide was to have its very own Body Mind Wallet Festival, I couldn't pass up an opportunity to attend. So after putting out a call to South Australian skeptics via Twitter, I a ragtag bunch of skeptical investigators descended on Adelaide's own Body, Mind, Psychic Expo. What follows is a discussion with these dedicated defenders of rationality. Many thanks to Ken, Claire, Jaylene and Petria for taking time out of their weekend to attend. And here's hoping you enjoy our visit to the Body, Mind, Psychic Expo. Okay, you're here with Sean the Blogonaut. I'm sitting in the grandstand at the Adelaide Showgrounds with a group of Adelaide skeptics, that's scientific skeptics, not climate skeptics. We've just been to the expo. What do we call this expo?
Body, Mind, Psychic Expo.
Body, Mind, Psychic Expo. 300 stalls of absolute crap. And yeah, so we've all paid $12 to get in. We're outside, we've had our fill. I'll introduce you to the rest of the skeptics sitting around me, or I'll let them introduce themselves. So,
I'm Petria.
I'm Claire. I'm Jolene.
I'm Ken.
Okay, so we'll just go around the circle. We've each picked up some flyers of things that stood out to us. I think we've got quite a heavy sort of science background here. So if I go around the circle again and just let me know what sort of science backgrounds you do have, or educational backgrounds. Okay, Ken?
I'm a PhD in landscape scale ecology, so in the biological sciences. And was raised by parents with medical and geological science backgrounds, so fairly much the monist from birth.
Okay, Joanne?
I'm currently completing my PhD in molecular biology at the University of Adelaide.
I have an honours degree in environmental science from the University of Adelaide.
I'm not one of the scientists at all. I'm a horticulturalist, and I was raised by two nutjob Christians, so I've done fairly well to be here today. I've made it this far.
You've done your too, man.
For the minister's daughter, I nearly made it to science.
Wonderful. And myself, I'm probably, one of the least qualified here. No scientific background whatsoever. I have an educational background.
The only qualification that matters is being sceptical.
That's right, and I don't think we need much of an education to figure out what we're looking at here. So I'll go first with something that stood out to me straight away, which was ear candling. If we've heard anything on Australian skeptics, Dr Rachael's done quite a few reports. I've just noticed here we've got an ear candling training course. If you want to be a practitioner, you get to do a 1.5-day practical and theory workshop, which will teach you the history of ear candling, anatomy of the ear, occupational health and safety. I would have thought you wouldn't want to stick a burning candle in your ear in the first place. Yeah. The only difference between the practitioner training and personal and home use training is half a day. And I presume some extra money somewhere in that. So still going strong, ear candling in South Australia. Claire, you've got something interesting there?
What I think was the vaguest practitioners we saw, which were the Sukyo Mahakiri, which are a non-profit, non-denominational organisation concerned with improving the quality of life for all. And basically they raise their hand to give a purifying energy which is commonly known as true light, which dissipates the effects of negativity in all aspects of your life. That's
also
commonly known as. We
basically all that their leaflet tells us, and all that we could see were a bunch of people holding one hand up in front of people's faces and looking fairly serious, and no further claims as to what that was supposed to achieve apart from make you feel a little brighter. I guess on a positive note, they haven't made any real claims as to what they're supposed to achieve apart from maybe make you feel happy.
And it's for
free. Yeah, for free. They didn't. That was one of the few places that wouldn't charge you for any of their services.
Okay. Did somebody have an attunement
we've got the
pamphlet? Petria, you've got it there.
The very first sentence in this pamphlet is, attunement is a sacred healing art and spiritual practice that increases one's experience of indwelling source. None of us know what that means. I haven't heard of indwelling source. Source has a capital S, so that's obviously It's a
proper
thing.
noun.
It's a real thing. It's a proper noun. And then it continues with a whole lot of nonsense about spiritual connections. I think these were the people who, similar to the Tsukio Mahikari people, were holding hands up. I think they had, but it was one hand in front of the forehead and one hand at the back, or I saw one person doing that. Again, it's not touching, but doing something apparently.
It's clearly a different way of manipulating the body's energy fields, in inverted commas. Yes, maybe it's more effective because it uses two hands.
Offshoots from Reiki. Maybe everyone's bored of just the whole Reiki non-touching therapy and they want other types of non-touching therapies.
Well, I believe people have all seen that report by that 9-year-old in the US that therapeutic touch doesn't work. So they've lost faith in that method of manipulating the body field. So now it's two hands.
Non-touch.
Yes, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I thought that looked a bit like, maybe anglicised Reiki. As opposed to, going... Because apparently Reiki's really expensive and there's lots of levels, which sounds a lot like a martial art to me, where they just string you out on belts and moving up.
A pyramid scheme.
Yes.
I love how it says in the brochure there, attunement, a sacred... Not quite sure, a sacred what?
And in another square it says attunement, a gentle.
So look at the general claims that most of these make about what they can heal or what they deal with. And it's things like headaches, migraines, hay fevers. Do you suffer from back pain?
I think the most disturbing claims are the ones which sort of pertain to really quite serious illnesses and disease. Like, I saw some flies claiming to, treat malignant tumours.
That's not right.
I think, surely, you would hope that it's a criminal claim, that you can't just go around telling people you can heal their cancer.
There are regulations about that, which I'm not
Which is why
on, but I know there's Skeptic Zone people
a vibration machine was supposed to apparently work on malignant tumours, was it not? Wasn't it one of their claims?
And the live blood analysis claim to
yes,
identify that.
word
But we all know
cancer
how
there.
dodgy that is already.
But it was very slick. I thought that was probably one of the slickest sort of productions with the live blood analysis.
Yeah.
It does look very...
It's quite
Sciencey.
It looks scientific, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They've got a microscope in their stalls. So
and a big
That's pretty
plasma
scientific.
screen.
Enough for me.
And a guy dressed like a doctor.
most of the places don't make specific claims about specific ailments like that. They make general claims, and they start by saying, like, are you stressed or do you have some non-specific pains? And then
Do you feel
then
tired
they don't outright
or
claim that
stressed?
they can cure it, but they then say that, well, this we've got this therapy, so they imply. So they're not making specific health claims or specific claims about being able to heal anything, but all of the types of ailments they suggest that might be cured by their treatments are the kinds of things that it's well demonstrated that placebos are effective against. So placebos reduce your perception of pain or of nausea. So they all seem to be relying pretty heavily on that.
Yeah,
And trying not to make claims that would open themselves to litigation.
Basically, it's a big room full of products that will hopefully make them money
There were
based
some-
on the
Yeah,
based on the placebo effect. It's
there were some people
largely
selling
that.
fudge. That looked
Damn.
quite tasty.
I missed that.
This is the live blood analysis.
They had free
I know
samples of
that,
fudge too.
It doesn't actually say live blood analysis, but it was the Glenelg Blood Morphology Naturopathic Centre. Very sciencey looking brochure and pictures and everything.
Lots of sciencey words here too with the
Interstitial.
Yeah.
oxidative stress.
In less than 10 minutes, learn if you are suffering from oxidative stress, hormone or neurotransmitter imbalance. So I think the neuro maybe is replacing the word quantum these days. Neuro this and neuro that.
Yep.
It's all good. Mineral imbalance, intestinal malabsorption, digestive allergies, lipid...
Metabolism.
Metabolism. That word's not that hard. I've said it before. Metabolism disorders, diabetes, potential depression, just in
See, that's
case.
good, because if they tell you, so they'll tell you you're potentially depressed, and that's a good way to make you
You
depressed.
just haven't quite sunk to the lowest depths
If
of
you
it.
weren't worrying before, you're worrying now.
Are they claiming they can fix diabetes?
No, they can just tell you
Diabetes
whether
risk,
you've got
it says.
you're at risk of it.
The vibration machine was claiming to, I think, help treat diabetes.
Really? Through vibration?
And tumours, I believe, as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't quite get how that works.
Back into action,
For the people listening to the audio, the vibration machine, it looked like you were standing holding some handlebars and your feet were vibrated very slightly up and down on a plate while you were in a squatting, sort of semi-squatting position. So
the same sort of thing you see advertised on Danel's Direct on TV to take away your cellulite.
So what is it? Vulnerability or potential diabetes? Is not everyone at risk of diabetes, of type 2 diabetes, if their diet is... So you could essentially, honestly say that you're at risk of diabetes to anyone, and it would be an accurate claim.
Because people can get this late onset.
You could eat terribly for the next 10 years and then get diabetes. You should pay us money to tell you that.
One of the pictures they had on... it's not on that pamphlet, but on they had there was different pictures of the blood cell images with underneath a very simple word like cancer, or what were some of the other ones? You were looking through them.
One was silicon. Silica, yes.
Like
silica.
You can see all these in the blood, in a very quick snapshot of your blood. You can see these things, which is just bizarre that anyone could believe that is such a simple procedure.
But it's what people want to hear, that you can easily be given an answer for what's wrong with you. Rather than, like, if you see a real doctor, they'll be honest and they'll say, in a lot of cases, this is what we think it is, but we're not certain. Whereas these live blood analysis people will just tell you that you've got something wrong with you, and I'm sure
they'll tell you how to treat it as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll give you a certain way of treating it. So it removes all the uncertainty and allows you to feel like you're doing something. Which is, like, it might be a nice idea to give someone that sort of sense of security, but if it...
Not if you tell them they've got terminal cancer based on a blood...
No, but that's not nice at all. But if it prevents them from seeking real medical help for a real problem, just by dealing with the symptom of pain or unhappiness that they have, then the real medical problem will get worse.
And I imagine it annoys the hell out of a lot of doctors who get patients turn up and tell them what their live blood analysis has shown that they have, and now can they please have some medication to help?
Yeah.
And the doctor has to then start from scratch, or even before that, and explain how that's not an accurate diagnosis of what they might have.
One thing I was wondering about, I'm not sure who said it, might have been you, Jolly, but when we were looking at the slides, the pictures, and it had a cancer in the bloodstream or in the picture, and we were sort of going, wouldn't that be terrible? You told somebody they got cancer from the live blood analysis.
I think it actually said terminal cancer.
Terminal cancer.
It did.
I wonder if that's actually ever come up before, and if that's just been placed in the slides to try and reinforce that this is a real
scare
thing.
People into thinking maybe I should, just in case. I have, although if you've got terminal cancer, then there's not a lot you're going to be able to do about it anyway.
No, if it's terminal by its definition, then you're screwed.
I can't actually comment on whether you can simply tell if a person has cancer by looking at a blood sample. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to tell if it's terminal cancer by simply looking at a blood sample.
Not just looking at testing blood, maybe, or another test as well, I'd hope, but not just looking, and that's all they're doing. They're only looking at a blood cell.
No way that you
can't determine what's in something by the appearance of it.
Yeah.
Well, no, the only way you could tell would be if your red blood cells were misshapen, and if that was a diagnostic characteristic of a particular kind of terminal cancer. But they were suggesting, I think, it sort of implied that they could tell all terminal cancers. But which components of the blood can you see under a microscope? The red blood cells? I don't think you can see any of the other components.
It wasn't a particularly fancy-looking microscope that they had there.
No.
It was a high school grade.
It was the big plasma screen that was given at the scienciness.
Talk about that virtual reality.
Take back control of your life. Do you need help with anxiety, depression, stress, or sleep problems? Are you battling with smoking, weight management, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling addiction? What you do next is you get some virtual reality therapy, which provides immediate access to the benefits of mind-body medicine in a consistent, pain-free, and reliable manner. Who would like to describe what we witness people doing.
Is that like goggle therapy?
Yeah. People with... no, you explain it, Ken. You have a grasp of things like the Lawnmower Man.
People were wearing, and I'd like to point out that they weren't VR headsets. They were just headsets that put a TV screen close to your eyes. And then you viewed a peaceful scene like a pretty rainforest scene, and you sat there motionless. And I say they're not VR because VR immerses you in a three-dimensional environment. So you turn your head and you're looking at a different part of the scene. This was a static scene. You turn your head and you're looking at the same scene.
So it's not actually virtual reality?
No, it's... So
Goodness me.
Yeah, I know they're dishonest. But on their stall they had it was like a video clip running on a TV, and it showed a human brain and a neuron with like electrical pulses moving along the axioms, which looked pretty cool. So I presume there's some science in here somewhere.
Well, in the pamphlet, it says virtual reality therapy works with both your conscious and subconscious mind to develop new neurological pathways. So do you think that's what that clever little diagram on the computer was showing?
There's a neuron growing new pathways. It is. Maybe neuron or neuro is the new age catchphrase. Yeah, the new quantum.
It's the quantum for 2010.
The quantum for the teens.
Actually, that's the comment you med earlier, Ken, was that quantum was suspiciously absent.
Yeah.
Yes. And then my theory, which Ken thinks was ridiculously optimistic, is that skeptics have actually had a effect on the use of the word quantum where it shouldn't be used in New Age therapies.
And the other
who knows
noticeable absence was the lack of claims coming from ancient cultural traditions. So there was a lot of modern technology-based things, but there was not a lot of this is an ancient Native American treatment.
No.
There was not a lot of that, which is not what I expected.
Going on the good old days of pillaging other native noble savages, heritage, for their medicines. There was a lot of technology, wasn't there?
A lot of technology, yeah. It'd be interesting to actually count up the percentage of stalls that were using science.
I liked one
or not using science.
One had the word interstitial in something, which sounds pretty cool.
I think that was the...
electro-interstitial scan. Yeah, no, we've been over that one.
Was that the full body scan?
Oh, that was a different one. We haven't talked about that.
Was that the one that just appeared to show you whether you had organs inside?
This is the electro body scan. Yeah.
I've often wondered if you have organs. I know doctors talk about other stuff, but I need to see it.
I don't know.
One noticeable absence, which, going back to your point about skeptics perhaps having an effect, was power balance bracelets. I didn't see any of those around there, and I know they sell them in South Australia because I saw them in a sports shop in Clare. They had it plastered all over the front window as power balance bracelets in stock now.
Okay.
In that big sort of chalky pink writing. So, in summing up, would we go again?
Sure.
You reckon?
Why not?
For investigatory purposes, sure.
So perhaps if we were to meet up next year, we might do that survey of what stores are selling what.
Do a bit more counting, to have a bit more of a plan of action about and seeing what's changed between this year and next year. So it's going to be different.
See who's got the bigger stalls, who's doing well out of their
what
products.
Other kooky ideas people have come up with.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see if the Spice Kitchen is back again and maybe eat lunch there.
When the Nougat stall, we definitely
wasn't.
We didn't sample the Nougat stall for their interesting therapies.
And I'm all for sugar therapy. I had no problem with that.
No.
There were a few odd stalls which didn't appear to match the spirit of the
some
expo.
people were just there to sell to a crowd.
There was a dog food stall, there was a Nougat stall, there was an Indian food stall, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation was there,
really?
Which was really, I thought was really sad.
Oh, yeah.
Just added to.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the first person I interviewed was the Baptist Church, and they mentioned to me that there was 4 other evangelical churches there. I noticed some people had a prayer tent up, so there was no sort of divide. This is not just New Age territory. They were quite willing to come in and hawk their wares or sell their stuff alongside everyone else.
And of course, the Scientologists were the first to give us a leaf for the Benny.
Yeah.
So we walked in the
You've got
door.
the crossover with pseudoscience and religion. The original crossover. Scientologists. But my point was that it makes sense that they were there. They wouldn't appreciate a lot of what these other groups are selling, because they're selling spirituality that is either not to do with God or vaguely to do with God. They're happy to at least be a part of it, because if they get any people attending their church, it's a win for them. So it's all bets are off.
So they'll mix it with the devil worshippers for a day or two.
Well, that's why Christmas is on the 20th of December. Been taking over pagan celebrations for a long time now.
All right then. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for making the effort to come down.
Thank you, Frank.
Join us now for Drinking Skeptically in the Think Tank.
And it's a good evening to you all from our favourite club down the street. Welcome to the Think Tank. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. Not champagne this week. Good old Diet Coke.
Water.
Oh, water for you. On the heavy stuff.
Isn't it deep Diet Coke?
Oh, you got wine and Diet Coke.
It's actually homeopathic remedies.
Hey, and that laughter is none other than our good friend and Skeptic Zone stalwart, Joanne Benhamu.
Hi, Richard.
Hi,
It's been
Jo.
a while, actually.
I'm glad you could make it. You're looking very wintry tonight.
Why, thank you, yeah. I'm looking forward to winter.
In your
However,
scarfy scarf.
I'm also looking forward to not winter.
Oh, in a couple of weeks in Las
Yes.
Vegas. You're going to be joining me by the pool, I hope.
I believe so.
Joining me by the pool in a couple of weeks also is Eran Segev.
Hi, Richard.
Hi. And, of course, joining me by the nomming table will be Dr. Rachael Dunlop.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Dr. Rachael
Where's the
Dunlop.
buffet?
Don't worry, when we go to Las Vegas, I'll point you in the direction of the buffet. Now, a few little notes to get to. I've had an email from Mal Vickers down in Victoria, who's part of the Victorian Skeptics. And they've recently updated their website, the Victorian
yeah,
Skeptics.
we noticed that the other day.
Looks great. And people in the Melbourne area and Victoria can go to http://vicskeptics.wordpress.com. Check out their great new website. And Mal is telling me of a talk which is on this Monday the 21st. Dr. Ken Harvey will be speaking to Victorian Skeptics. And Mal says he's one of the good guys in science, most notably known for his attempts to clean up some of the rubbish, outlandish claims of homeopathy throughout the TGA. So, this is at the Lanolta Restaurant at 140 Lygon Street, Carlton. The Monday the 21st, turn up at 6 o'clock for a chat with skeptics, and then the talk gets underway at 8 o'clock. Dr. Ken Harvey, Dr. Rachael.
Dr. Ken Harvey is awesome.
He is. We think very highly of Dr. Ken Harvey. So look, Melbourne people, do yourselves a favour, as Molly Meldrum would say. Check it out. Also, let's go to the other side of the country, where now we're talking about Perth. And Thursday the 1st of July 2010, from 6 o'clock till 9:30, at the Telethon Institute for Child Health Research, 100 Roberts Road, Subiaco, Australia. View map. Oh, sorry, it's printed out. Confused by the vaccination debate? Are you looking for more information you can trust? Well, then you should turn up to this talk. It's going to be hosted by Professor Fiona Stanley, AC. You can find out more by emailing events at ichr.uwa.edu.au. I think it's also on Facebook. Vaccination, the experts, the facts. And our very own Kylie Sturgis is going to go along, and they've given her permission to record the whole talk for use on the Skeptic Zone.
And I should probably point out that Fiona Stanley is really an expert, not one of those fake experts that have been to Perth recently saying that they provide credible information.
Also, let me mention that Charo Saventi. Now, Charo is the guy on the applied kinesiology video who I demonstrate the applied kinesiology on and show how it works.
Yes.
He's written to me with an interesting little one. He's saying, I've been trying to see the state of alternative medicine at chemists in my local area. In the process, I was told that children under 6 months, could no longer legally be given cough medicines without a prescription. Homeopathic cough medicines were still fine, though, and pharmacists were switching to promoting them for sales instead. That's interesting, isn't it?
Where did he find this?
Well, his local area is the Wollongong area.
I think there's something in that. I've got a vague memory of that issue coming up sometime within the last year. There were just some concerns that I really wish I'd actually been able to look at this more closely, but I think...
I just got ice cream.
You would not believe what just arrived on the table.
Noms!
It's the first time I think that I'm the last person to finish the food.
It's a bowl of
ice
ice cream with chocolate topping and cornflakes. Yes. I kid you not. Sorry, Joe. We don't
No, I don't know whether this is something that's actually... there's been a ruling on this in terms of what can be prescribed to children under 6 months. But I do know there was an issue a while back to do with certain cough medicines being given to children. And it was to do with some of the ingredients in those cough medicines. And I just can't remember exactly what the details were of that. So I think there is probably some truth in that. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the homeopathic products have seen an opportunity there to really jump in there and market their products.
Imagine that, homeopaths being opportunists.
Who would have thought? But, you know, I mean, this is just ongoing with the issues we've discussed so many times, which, in fact, I think a while back when the Australian Skeptics did their open letter to pharmacists of Australia, it was really, I think, triggered by one of those issues, which was the stocking of pain and fever remedies for children. And this falls in line with the same kind of thing, you know, that parents are potentially using this nonsense for potentially serious childhood illnesses.
I would say undoubtedly there are parents out there using nonsense because they have been ill-informed by people at pharmacies. That's why, personally speaking, of course, not speaking on behalf of Australian Skeptics, I really don't think very highly of the pharmacy industry as a whole because they let this sort of thing go on.
No, in fact, actually, Dr Rachael posted something recently about the most trusted professions, which were, I can't remember the exact order. I think it...
Just let me, I'll pull it up because it's on my Facebook.
But I think pharmacists actually were somewhere in the top there, and I was quite struck by that because I thought, you know, they're not a professional group that I put very high in my level of trust these days.
Well, the problem is, of course, when you walk into a pharmacy, you're not to know who comes up to serve you if they're qualified in this, that or the other, or they're some representatives from some woo-woo factory, you know?
Yeah, so this is quite a few months old, this list. Someone sent it to me. But every year a magazine called Reader's Digest does a list called Australia's Most Trusted Professions and also Australia's Most Trusted People. And I'm not exactly sure how they compile it. I think it's just by readers' feedback.
Right.
So it's a list here of 40 professions. At the very top is ambulance officers, followed by firefighters and then nurses.
There you go. Joe.
Yay! And this is followed by pilots, and then at number 5 is pharmacists. Yeah. And they actually even beat out doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
So, I mean, I've said this in the past. Yay, that'll keep our listeners happy. I mean,
we'll get a good review this week, you know that.
I hope so. I've mentioned this before because, you know, they're constantly coming up on the top of these lists. But, you know, stop taking the piss, pharmacists. Really, it's, you know, Joe and I had this discussion recently about when we sent out our open letter to pharmacies. What, a year ago maybe?
Oh, at
It's
least.
more than that. It's
Yeah, over a year ago,
it was
I'm sure.
around the time when I got involved with the
Yeah.
Yeah.
more than a year ago.
So, for listeners that don't know, we wrote an open letter to pharmacies of Australia imploring them to stop selling quackery,
Ear
basically.
candles specifically at the time.
Specifically targeted...
Specifically ear candles, but...
They still do, of course.
We specifically targeted ear candles because they've demonstrated to cause harm directly by dripping wax in your ears and all that sort of
Setting
stuff.
your curtains alight or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And Joe and I were just, shaking our heads over the fact that really nothing much has changed, I mean, we had a very good response to that letter, but nothing much has changed. Yeah, so Richard's just pointed to my screen. As I said, there's a top 40. Now, who do you guys reckon would be on the bottom? You've seen it, Joe, so don't cheat.
I've seen it too, so it'll have to be Eran.
Oh, Eran. Who's the least trusted profession?
Either journalists or politicians.
Not bad. Politicians came number 38. Yes. Journalists came number 32.
That's good.
Telemarketers were last.
Is that even a profession?
I guess.
I thought he was. The profession is traveller, and telemarketer is the pastime.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe.
But number 37 was psychics and astrologers. Do you think they predicted that?
I think they did. I think they came quite high. Who's number 40?
Telemarketers.
Oh, telemarketers.
Then
Number 40.
salesmen.
Okay.
Car salesmen are 39.
Okay.
Sex workers are more trusted than astrologers, and so are real estate agents.
And lawyers.
But actually, in the top 40, the most trusted people, we have a friend somewhere at the top usually.
Oh, Dick Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also Dr. Carl.
Yes. He's always in the top 5 or 10.
He gave a talk once where he showed that every year he dropped a space, he dropped a position or something. I can tell you who the most trusted people were. Yes, Dr. Carl was number 11, and last year he was number 10. Dick Smith is number 8. Mm-hmm. Last year was number 12. So maybe it's because of his immunisation campaign that...
I see the most trusted for 2009 was Dr. Fiona Wood, burns specialist. That's good.
Yeah, and that's
She
based
was also
on...
Australian of the Year.
Yeah, that's based on the work she did surrounding the Bali bombings.
Number 3, another Australian of the Year, Professor Ian Fraser, cancer researcher.
Yeah, but he's evil because he designed that HPV vaccine, which,
Oh
the
my!
anti-vaxxers don't like that one.
Number 6, my old friend Hugh Jackman. Look at that.
Your old friend.
Yeah.
Princess Mary of Denmark came in at number 9.
I thought she gave up her Australian citizenship.
Nah.
I don't know. So, and the list goes on and on.
Who's down the bottom?
Who's down the bottom? Least trusted person. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, our number 100 is David Hicks.
Okay.
Now, he was our sort of terrorist suspect. And then number 98 is Ben Cousins, who's an AFL player who got kicked out of his football team for too much cocaine abuse.
Number 91, Kyle Sandilands.
Australians would know.
Shock jock.
Oh, and Joe, here's something for you.
yes.
Number 90, Senator Stephen Fielding.
That's actually so high for him.
Do you want to tell our listeners about the faux pas foot in gob yesterday?
It's so incomprehensibly imbecilic. I guess the thing is really, if this is the state of some of the people representing us in our Senate, then I fear for our country. So the Australian government has been looking at bringing in some long-awaited paid parental leave.
I think that's just gone through today, in fact. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't actually had a chance to look at what's happened since yesterday, but it's actually, been supported fairly well from both sides. Senator Stephen Fielding, for those who don't know, is from the Family First Party, who are a moral majority. In fact, some people might have seen him on Q&A where Richard Dawkins compared him to an earthworm.
That's right. Because did someone ask him the age of the Earth?
Yes.
And he refused to answer.
So, anyway, yesterday in Parliament, Senator Fielding came out in opposition to the current paid parental leave as it stands, because he's very concerned that drug addicts and welfare cheats might become pregnant and then have an abortion at 20 weeks. The reason for this is that the legislation or the parental leave will allow mothers who have stillborn babies to still claim this leave. So Senator Fielding is very concerned that drug addicts and welfare cheats might take advantage of this by having abortions.
So he doesn't know the difference between an abortion and a stillborn child?
No.
This is the same man who believes, probably he must believe, that dinosaurs were on Noah's Ark.
Yes.
I'll just show. This is the latest. I just pulled up the news, and he's now defending his controversial remarks, saying that all I was trying to do was close that loophole, Senator Fielding told ABC Television, and adding that his approach was fair and reasonable.
Can we borrow something from George Rabb here? More.
He says, actually, can you get ready to do another one? I wasn't the only one to raise this issue in the Senate yesterday, but Senator Fielding, when pressed to name the other senators, could not come up with any names.
Morons!
Just what a moron.
Thank you for that, Dr. Rachael. Now, Eran, before we get to you, I'd now like to talk about our good old friend Travis Roy. Rachael.
Right, so Travis Roy is our good friend from Granite State Skeptics. I'm sorry, Richard.
Go on. I just read out this whole bits, folks, and I was criticised, so now it's Rachel's turn.
Criticised? I couldn't understand what you were saying.
It's Diet Coke, I promise.
See if you can do it in less than 15 minutes this time.
Travis Roy from Granite State Skeptics wrote to a magazine called Men's Fitness, where he'd noticed that they were advertising Power Balance, and he's been very active in debunking the claims made by Power Balance. And in fact, a couple of weeks back, Travis found a supplier in China and where we could buy them for 3 cents. Or you could actually order samples, 3 samples for free, or just for the cost of the postage. And I noticed that this week he received his sample Power Balance bracelets, and he sent me a message saying that he, based on some of the claims that they improve your strength by 500%, he was going to go out and throw some cars around the neighbourhood. Because he had 3. So if you wear them all at once, I guess that's additive. So anyway, he wrote to this magazine...
It doesn't multiply?
Do you think it's exponential or additive?
Could be exponential. Who knows?
Don't know.
They cancel each other out at all?
Well, what about your bioenergy field? Do they...
Ooh, does it oscillate with the harmonics? I wonder.
Yeah. Anyway, so he wrote to this magazine and suggested that they shouldn't really be advertising Power Balance because it's, doesn't do anything. And they wrote back... a gentleman by the name of Ian Brooks, who's the publisher of Men's Fitness, and said, "Thanks for your comments, Travis. We don't judge the products that are advertised in Men's Fitness. That's up to our readers to do. On the whole, our readers are pretty switched on, discerning guys who love the magazine. We are happy to run advertisements for all types of products as long as they meet our moral code. You will never see ads for porn sites, brothels, etc. in Men's Fitness. We have a very high editorial standard which tries to empower men to be the best they can be." Sounds like the AVN. "And I think your claim that we have ripped off our readers is a little over the top." So Travis wrote back to Ian Brooks and said, what a great moral code you guys sell scam products. Where do you draw the line? Sure, the Power Balance is a silly bracelet, but it costs 3 cents from the distributor and they charge $60. So it's okay to sell a product that fails all these tests. What about unsafe supplements? What about homeopathy? What about other bogus claims and cures? How can you promote a product that does not perform as claimed, fails simple tests, hiding behind saying it's not violating your moral code? Sounds like a bad moral code to me.
Well read, Rachael.
Oh, yeah. Stop it.
And well written, Travis.
I don't know, the responses of these people is not dissimilar to... Oprah's view of her viewers that, you know, everyone's discerning and everyone's able to judge for themselves, and it's not our responsibility.
Now, you've got something to say about that.
Have I?
Yeah, it reminds me of a point that you brought up in New York.
Are you reading my mind or something? I was just thinking of that. Are you a psychic?
Yes, I am. Continue.
Okay. Yeah, I had this exact discussion, Joe, with Howard Schneider, who's a journalist from New York, a lecturer and journalist, when I did a panel about the media at Nexus in 2008-9. And myself and John Snyder, who's a paediatrician, were talking about the responsibility of journalists to provide accurate information to their readers. And his argument with me was that they're just there to report events as they see it, and it's up to the readers to make a decision. Now, I took objection to that, particularly in the sense of false balance, which we've talked about on the show before, you know, where you'll go and ask the anti-vaxxers about, you know, a vaccine issue when, you know, and I proposed to him, I mean, this was actually Richard's idea, is if you're doing a story on the Holocaust, are you going to go and ask a Holocaust denier? Well, he said, well, no, of course not. Like, that's a stupid question. Well, then why would you talk to the anti-vaxxers if you're doing a story on vaccines? And so he had the similar opinion. And I think I've spoken to a few people about this, including John Rennie from Scientific American, the editor-in-chief. And that's the way they're trained, because they're trained to get both sides of the story.
Even when there are not both sides.
It is. And, you know, my husband is not working as a journalist, but he comes from a journalistic background, and he takes that viewpoint very strongly, that it is the journalist's place to report. And I do support that. I understand that viewpoint. And when it comes to things like politics, when it comes to things like reporting on events, I find when I read a newspaper, I can very clearly distinguish now. I had trouble when I was younger, but I find I can very clearly distinguish now between a journalistic piece that is passing a judgment on something and a journalistic piece that is reporting on an event. But when it comes to science and when it comes to things like vaccination, I do take issue with false balance, and I think there it is a totally different ballgame when it comes to things like, consumer issues, reporting on products and on their effectiveness. I'm sorry, I don't think that's what journalists are doing well.
I think it's mostly, it's okay to just report when you're talking about opinions, but when there's facts, it's the journalist's responsibility to determine what the facts are. So, and they do make choices, and that's a really important point to make. When somebody, for example, it's a good example, of course, about vaccines. When somebody reports on vaccines, to go to the AVN or some organization like that to get a response is making a statement. It is making a decision. So it is not like whatever available information, I just put it out there. You go and seek some information. You choose what information to seek. So I don't buy that. I think when it's anything to do with verifiable facts, then they have a responsibility to report the best available facts.
Well, it's very easy journalism to, instead of doing all that, you simply call up this person from this point of view and that person from that point of view, and get them together or ask them, and that's your story. Yes. That's easy.
But you have to also consider that in the 24-hour news world, you know, the deadlines are ridiculous. They don't have time to do, and also specialist journalists are becoming less and less common. So science journalists are not around as much anymore. So sometimes generalists are getting the job of a science report, and they might not be trained in that area. So it's all, we can't give them too hard a time.
Yeah. But the thing is, the journalists are not trained to also judge evidence, and they will go for anecdotal evidence. And speaking of anecdotal evidence,
a segue. Nice.
Segue.
A segue.
Last night,
yes.
the New South Wales Blues rugby league team.
Now, listeners last week around the world would have possibly remembered me talking about the fact that our rugby league team in New South Wales were seen using the power balance in their training, and they had lots of publicity about it. Well, they had their big match last night, and they were just ripped apart.
They were ripped apart. It was already 34-0, and it ended up 34-6. And, I guess it didn't help. I was looking at the news today I was looking for news items that actually said, news items from today that had power balance in them. And the latest news items with power balance in them were news items from yesterday saying that the New South Wales Blues wore the power balance bracelet. Now, what I find a little bit amusing was that amongst the skeptics, there was, we all live in New South Wales. Typically, if we cared enough, we would want New South Wales to win. But in this case, not so much. Yeah, there is a certain element of Schadenfreude here about them losing after giving all the publicity to the bracelet.
They did need all the help they could get.
Yeah. But they lost very badly too.
Look, they didn't lose because of it. There's no issue with that. It's just that that they thought that they would win because of it. It's just ridiculous. So, yeah. And since we were talking about last week, can I mention something else? A follow up on something that you mentioned last week. You were talking about Penelope Dingle, who died from colorectal cancer after being treated by not being treated by a homeopath. So I read about it because obviously a very interesting story. So I followed up on it and read and encountered this story here that describes the lawsuit that apparently was brought by her sisters.
It's a coronial inquest. It's not really a lawsuit.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So it was, but her sisters are the ones who are seem to be prominent there. And there was a sentence there that I found very interesting. It said, all 4 sisters use homeopathic remedies. They stress the purpose of the inquiry is not to demonize the practice, but to highlight the potential lack of regulation of the industry. I find that quite appalling. It means they just don't get it. They think it's this one rogue homeopath. They don't understand that homeopathy is crap and it doesn't work, and there's no evidence that it works, and there never will be evidence that it works because it doesn't and it can't. And of course, I agree that Francine's Crane is worse than many others because she was, obviously just morally behaving very poorly in addition to just selling homeopathy by convincing Penelope not to go to a real doctor. But, the problem is homeopathy, not Francine's Crane.
No. Well, I had a look into the code of conduct that is from the Australian Homeopathic Association, and in that article, Eran, that you just cited, it does say that she is registered. Francine Scrain is with the Australian Registration of Homeopaths or something. Can you dig up exactly where she's registered? Francine
Scrain is registered with the Australian Register of Homeopaths.
Right. So I'm not sure if that means she comes under the legislation of the AHA, Australian Homeopathic Association, but I think it probably does. So I dug up their code of conduct, and it might not surprise you to know it's 9 pages long compared to, some other professions' code of conducts, which is like hundreds of pages long. It's not particularly detailed, but anyway, so I tried to find sections where she's breached that code if indeed she is a member. Section 1, Part 1, the very, very first part of it, it says, under general principles of professional conduct, it states that the welfare of patients shall take precedence over a member's self-interest and the interest of employees and colleagues. And then Section 2.4 is that patients whose state of health is deteriorating shall not be attended indefinitely without the member in charge suggesting or insisting upon a consultation with at least one other practitioner to confirm the assessment and treatment.
What?
So it's all pretty vague.
What baloney is that? What do they mean, another practitioner?
Because the thing is that all they do then is just pass a person around from one homeopath to the next. And if the other another homeopath. And if another homeopath also has the same view that medical science and the medical profession is the wrong way to go, then they're just going to pass the person back and forth between them.
But I'm sure we'd all like to see the end of homeopathy, wouldn't we, Eran?
Yeah, well, Edward Ernst agrees, and he thinks that it might be close to the end of homeopathy. I disagree with him, by the way. I think it'll never go away completely, but it could be. But he could be losing a lot of power, and that's very important. The title of the article he wrote for The Guardian is Homeopathy Awareness Week. Is this the homeopath's last stand? And he wrote about a few of the things that have been going wrong for homeopathy recently. Of course, there's the report from the Commons Science and Technology Committee. In addition to that, MPs also criticised homeopath for trying to mislead the public by providing inaccurate information. The Prince of Wales Foundation of Integrated Health, a staunch supporter of homeopathy in the NHS, folded. And apparently it wasn't just because of money problems. They folded in the midst of a police investigation for fraud and money laundering.
Whoa!
Yeah. And last month, the British Medical Association described homeopathy as witchcraft.
Yeah.
And called for an end to all funding on the NHS. So he says that it's not a streak of bad luck. It's just that it's well deserved. And he ends. Yeah. Yeah. And he writes. Obviously, the article goes on for a bit longer, and he describes why he thinks that this could be the end of homeopathy, definitely in the way it is in the UK, practiced in the UK at the moment. And I can't say that I do not hope that he's right.
Yeah. Well, this is not the time to let up. It's not the time to let up our opposition to it.
And I hope very much that he's right, but I fear that he's not. And I have found this case, the Dingle case, particularly disturbing, particularly because as I've mentioned to you, I've seen. I work with a lot of people who've got cancer, and I see them go through their treatment, and I see a lot of them come out the other end of it, pretty well. And when I think about what this woman must have been through, and it reminds me of on a previous one of our podcasts or of someone else's, them discussing the case of someone who. A man who died from complications of diabetes, I think it was, with a gangrenous foot that he was putting honey or something on. And, just some of these cases of people who, get to the point in an illness where they are so damaged and they just do not seek treatment. And I think...
Or they seek the wrong treatment.
Or they seek the wrong treatment. I've spoken to some of the people I work with, or people, who are in medical type professions, and they, the attitude of a lot of people is, look, people make their choices, but I agree with that, but I think that the problem is that I think that doctors find it very hard to deal with the choices that some of their patients make. You look at the surgeon who was looking after Penelope Dingle and how absolutely devastated he was by the choices she made. And I think that we must never forget how vulnerable these people are, how taken advantage of they are, and that when they're faced with a diagnosis that to them is so catastrophic, I don't think we can say, well, people make their choices, because they don't make choices in a state of mind that is rational. They make choices in a state of mind that is completely overwhelmed. And I think that the way these vultures take advantage of them is just not being addressed. And
you must come across a lot of people who take the attitude of their woo practitioner or their mother or their sister or their friend know more than the doctors know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, if you've got a relative who you trust and who tells you, you should do this and this will be good for you, and you trust that person, then I could understand why some people, particularly a person who's perhaps not very well educated or someone who's vulnerable. Emotionally vulnerable. And when I say not educated, I just mean someone who's doesn't have access to the knowledge, who wouldn't know any better. And I think that we can't always assume that other people have the capacity to assess the evidence. Not everyone does, and I think that it's the responsibility of the regulating bodies to protect those people, and I just don't think they are. And frankly, I'm just sick of seeing people,
Yes, you can give people a free choice, but if one of those choices is seriously bad, they have to be warned.
At the same time, though, I do have to say that I think that a lot of people who do make these choices are people who are... It's interesting. I see people who come from a higher socioeconomic background tending more towards choosing weird and wonderful treatments. I find that a lot of people who come from a lower socioeconomic background, really, I don't know what evidence there is for this, or what
there is actually evidence.
Yeah, I know with homeopathy there is, and I know with the vaccination stuff as well.
Because they think they're educated, or they think they're clever, or what?
Yeah.
But I find that, if I were to take two patients and one of them came from a very high socioeconomic background and had dabbled in a bit of yoga and a bit of this and a bit of that, the minute they came along with the diagnosis of cancer, they'd be jumping in saying, "Oh, I must go and change my diet, and I must do this, and I've got to go see my naturopath."
Yeah, perhaps people are more used to being in control, more used to making informed decisions, and they think they misjudge their ability to make an informed decision in a situation that's obviously very complex.
Absolutely. Before we do our cheers, something very important is we should remind everyone, because I'm sure this will be coming out before Sunday, that tickets for TAM Australia will be going on sale this Sunday, the 20th of June, at 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
And if you want to know any more information, you can go to www.tamaustralia.org and follow us on @TAM Australia or on our Facebook page, TAM Australia. And that's it.
I'm glad you remembered that. Very well done.
It's just funny because it's been taking, the four of us have been spending pretty much every waking minute for the past few weeks dealing with this, and all of a sudden we forget to mention it. That's great. Yeah, maybe we wanted to take a bit of a break.
Thank you for reminding us all.
That's quite all right.
Joe. Well, thank you everybody for coming on. Dr. Rachael, thank you as ever.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
And until next think tank, cheers. I'm glad you remembered that. Thank you once again for downloading and listening to the Skeptic Zone. Not long now until a lot of your Zone team head over for TAM 8 in Las Vegas, where we'll be very happy to meet you if you're going. And it's only about a very short 6 months now until TAM Australia. Very exciting indeed. So, if we meet you soon, that will be fantastic. If not, I hope you keep listening to The Skeptic Zone. Until then, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.